my name is Rita Schopler. Today we're going to be talking about EMR, EHR, PHR, design, implementation, and use. The agenda for today is to define EMR, EHR, PHR, talk about the purpose, the history, major players in EMR, the design, the implementation, workflow, the impact on healthcare, and the future of EMR. So, to start, EMR is the electronic medical record. EHR is considered the electronic health record, and PHR is a personal health record. All three acronyms are used in conjunction, but it's important to know that they are technically different. The electronic health record is more a longitudinal collection of health information across patients and populations. The EMR, in contrast, is the patient record created by the provider. And in contrast, a personal health record is an electronic application for recording personal medical data that the individual patient controls and may make available to health providers. This type of technology has made paper charts become obsolete, and in place of writing on paper in a paper chart, clinicians type directly into an electronic chart. So, why go digital? It prevents the loss of HIPAA. HIPAA is the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act. Most consumers are aware what HIPAA is because you have to sign a waiver once a year at all medical offices. This means that your provider is not allowed to share your health information with unauthorized parties, and this is important because HIPAA is more desired by hackers than any other information. Going digital reduces paper, which is good for the environment and also provides savings to the hospital. It's more efficient and a smoother workflow. The nurses and providers don't have to travel back and forth between charting stations because the chart is pulled up on any PC that a nurse or doctor logs into. And in addition, it allows for secure transmission of patient data. It allows for transmission between locations within one healthcare system, for example, your primary care or your preventative care doctor and a surgeon for maybe an upcoming procedure. This allows for continuity of care, which is more convenient for the patient. And in the event of an emergency, if you were taken to a facility that was within a healthcare system that you have been to, they would be able to pull up your chart. This is really important in the event that you couldn't communicate. A physician would be able to see what kind of medications you're on and any recent procedures. The last point is that it could also allow for the data to be shared between healthcare systems. This is discussed later in another slide, and this does present a lot of challenges today, but many EMR vendors are working on features and upgrades to make this easier. So the history of EMR. Originally was known as Clinical Information Systems and first appeared in the 1960s. They started gaining traction in the 1980s, and around that time is when HL7 messaging came into play. HL7 messaging is just the type of coding that allows for the data to pass between servers. And then in the early 2000s, EMR pushed at a national level. Both President Bush and President Obama enacted programs to extend the use of EMR. And under President Obama, the term meaningful use became more well known. So as you can see on the left, there is a diagram related to meaningful use. Meaningful use is considered to have 5 pillars of health outcome policies: improving quality, engaging patients, improving care coordination, improving population and public health, and ensuring for adequate privacy and security, again, going back to HIPAA. So, some of the major players in EMR, Epic is one of the biggest known names. Cerner, Allscripts, CureMD, GE is trying to get into EMR more and more, Athena. There are many smaller EMRs. There are even some that are created by physicians for their use just at their health systems. So there is big box, and then there's even just some homegrown EMRs. So the design, 2 screenshots of examples of what a provider may see are shown on the screen. It allows for easier documentation that makes sense. It is intuitive. It's patient-centered to try to provide the best care possible to the patient. Keeps delegation, smart delegation that keeps work out of the exam room, and there's constant improvement around these tools. So, moving on to implementation. As you can imagine, the implementation of an EMR system is very challenging. There's software, hardware, training, and then you have to keep up with the routine upgrades. So, under the software deployment, it's important to understand that there's build that must be done. That build is essentially coding the software for the locations that are going to be using the software. Then, the next layer is a level of customization. So, physicians are allowed to customize what happens within the EMR when they log in. While this sounds very appealing, it actually does create a level of complexity in long-term support. So the more customization that's allowed indicates that they're going to need more analysts to support that software, because it means there's going to have to be a higher level of understanding and more time spent into digging into tickets and issues. On the hardware deployment side, if you consider when you went into a hospital, maybe in the late 1990s, there weren't likely many computers. So if you consider that a hospital has 300 patient rooms and every patient room needs a computer, along with nurses' stations and many other locations, you can imagine how challenging it would be to deploy all of the computers, scanners, printers, and all the other endpoint hardware to support the application. That's the first layer. The second layer is then all of that has to be connected back to the network. So you've now made a requirement to either have a data center on site or connected back to a hosted data center. There are servers, switches, access points, and many other types of infrastructure that is very expensive, and then you also have to have the engineers to deploy and support it long term. Once everything's in place, then you have to train your end users. As you can imagine, making time for training a clinician is difficult but required. Training can be the biggest pitfall of an EMR deployment. Then, once it's in place, you must plan and upgrade regularly. Falling behind means that your competitors in the healthcare industry have a leg up. So, workflow and practical use. The software must be deployed with the end user in mind. It is an expensive software to deploy, so if at any point the end user feels like they do not want to use it, there's a lot of wasted effort and money. The devices, computers, any other laptops, iPads, all the devices must be placed or used in a way for best interaction with the patient. The goal is to have the physician to be able to look at the patient as often as possible while still typing in the computer. We also continue to expand the modules for use within EMR. For example, EVS is the same thing as janitorial housekeeping at hospitals, and they have started to use what is shown on the screen called a bedboard that gives different color indications to know if the room is clean or needs cleaned. So of course, if the room is still dirty, that means that a new patient can't be brought to the bed yet or to the room, so that means that that could be slowing down business. So integrating EVS into the overall EMR allows for a quicker pace and quicker turnover within the hospital. As you can imagine, this was a game changer. There are both positives and negatives that are viewed based on the EMR. Some people say that it takes away from the patient and physician interaction, but as discussed, the availability of information and the continuity of care does give a better experience for the patient. EMR status can also affect the ability to recruit physicians. Some physicians are very particular about what software they would like to use. Also, there are healthcare systems that haven't finished even rolling out their EMR to all locations. In the next slides, we will talk about the future of EMR. It is important to note that as we move to bigger and better things, every healthcare system has to have the foundation rolled out that we've discussed or they won't be able to move on to the coolest and newest thing. So the future of EMR. So there are many high-level goals: accessibility, having more clinicians use software in more ways, integration, having more EMR systems be able to talk to each other, again helping continuity of care, searchability and ease of use, so continuing to redefine what the user interface looks like and feedback from the users. Standardization, very important, I mentioned this earlier, have to hold the standards and also create standards between EMRs so that they can talk. And then really the cool future part is the changing dynamics. Technology is advancing so quickly, especially artificial intelligence, and that is all playing into EMRs as they start to use that type of technology. So, questions for you guys. Do you think that the positive features of EMR outweigh the reduction of eye contact between patient and provider? As a patient, would you be comfortable if treatment decisions were based on artificial intelligence? Last one is, Amazon's trying to make a place in the EMR market. What do you think about Amazon providing healthcare services? Lastly, here are my references. I hope you guys enjoyed my presentation, and I look forward to discussing on the discussion board with you.